Chapter 771, Lord Vice Envoy. Scoundrel, where are you trying to run to? Dragon Commander Yi Cha led 3 immortal zombies as he flew in the air. They were very fast, as if like lightning. The person they were chasing was none other than Daoist Gu. He disguised himself as an immortal zombie and tried to mix into Northern Plains Zombie Alliance, but at the last moment, he was blocked by the Dao marked door at the discussion hall entrance. Because of this, the secret that he was not a Northern Plains immortal zombie was exposed, and Dragon Commander Yi Cha, one of the 3 leaders of Dark Flow Giant City, personally went after him. Suddenly, Daoist Gu stopped his movements. He turned around and looked at the pursuers, smiling as he said, "Are you having a hard time chasing me? Why don't you stop? I just have a few questions. If you answer me truthfully, I might spare your lives." What? The immortal zombies flew into a rage. "Scoundrel, you will not be able to escape. You dared to scheme against us, worm." A brawny male immortal zombie said in a malicious tone. "There might be a trap." A female immortal zombie immediately used her investigative method, scanning the surroundings. Almost at the same time, the female immortal zombie's expression became stupefied. She screamed in shock. 3 Central Continent Gu immortals appeared. Together with Daoist Gu, they surrounded the immortal zombies in a circle. Daoist Gu laughed lightly. He got rid of his disguise and restored his original appearance. His rank 7 Gu immortal aura emanated with no room for doubt. The immortal zombies were all stirring anxiously. Rank 7 Gu immortals. Dragon Commander Yi Cha's face was grim. He tried to raise the morale. "So what if it is an ambush? We both have 4 people, the numbers are the same. You are a rank 7 Gu immortal, but I am also rank 7. Do not think that immortal zombies have low battle strength, we just refuse to do unnecessary battles normally. You Gu immortals from another region are really daring. You dare to target Northern Plains Zombie Alliance. Humph. That's right, don't think I'm afraid of you. A battle it will be. You are all challenging our zombie alliance. Have you thought of the consequences?" The immortal zombies spoke. They were united as one. Daoist Gu clapped as he smiled. "By now, your letter to request support should have reached Dark Flow Giant City through your blessed land, right?" As he said that, the other 3 immortal zombies' facial expressions changed. Even Dragon Commander Yi Cha's gaze flickered. Immortal zombies were in an awkward state. If they could avoid battle, they would try to do so. This place was not far away from Dark Flow Giant City. Thus, the moment the Central Continent Gu immortals appeared, the 4 immortal zombies sent the information back. This was not because they were afraid of dying, but rather, why would they not ask for reinforcements if they could? Find out. Ted. Ovals on N. The more people there were, the greater their advantage. Even if they battled intensely, they would suffer fewer losses, and the benefits after the battle would be higher. Those who could become Gu immortals were astute people. Even a battle maniac would not fight brainlessly. If that was really the case, even if they became a Gu immortal, they would not live long. Daoist Gu looked at their expressions and cupped his fist as he praised. "Your esteemed alliance's Dao marked door is truly impressive. I am full of admiration. Even though I have heard rumors about it, I wanted to try it for myself. But the Dao marked door was left behind by a predecessor. Now that I am here, I have the confidence of taking all your lives before your reinforcements arrive. I am sure that you have already noticed, even though this area seems normal, it is a battlefield killer move, isolating us from the outside world. I'm afraid your letter will not reach the Alliance after all." The 4 immortal zombies' expressions changed again. Daoist Gu sighed. His tone became more gentle. He spoke with a sense of sincerity that could move people. "I have a soul-searching method, but I do not have the intention to kill you. If you cooperate with me and speak the truth, I will let you off intact." "Humph, those are big words. Let's see your methods first." Dragon Commander Yi Cha interjected during Daoist Gu's words. If he continued speaking, the morale that he had built up might fall apart. Other immortal zombies might give up, but Dragon Commander Yi Cha had a high status. He had his concerns. If he gave in without even trying to fight, his reputation would be ruined. How would he command his subordinates in the future? How would he remain as one of the 3 leaders of Dark Flow Giant City? Dragon Commander Yi Cha charged out first. The 3 immortal zombies behind him split up, towards his left, behind him, and to the right, instantly forming a simple diamond formation. Feng Jiuji's smile was unchanged, nevertheless he retreated in relaxed fashion. His opponents were too weak, he did not have the desire to fight. From his left and right, 2 Central Continent Gu immortals laughed and attacked from either side. An intense battle of 2 against 4 unfolded. The Central Continent Gu immortals were having the upper hand, expanding their advantage as time passed. Even though Dragon Commander Yi Cha furiously roared all the while and fought back bravely, he could not reverse the situation. But from start to finish, the 2 battling Central Continent Gu immortals did not lose control over the situation. After 15 minutes, Dragon Commander Yi Cha's face turned dark. He stopped the fighting. The other 3 immortal zombies had little battle intent remaining. They showed a faint expression of fear. What questions do you have? As long as they do not infringe on the core benefits of my zombie alliance, ask away. Dragon Commander Yi Cha said coldly. A wise man submits to circumstances. It is good that you have such an understanding. Feng Jiuji's smile became wider. He asked, I need to know about immortal zombie Sha Huang. Sha Huang. Dragon Commander Yi Cha was stunned. That immortal zombie who just joined. The female immortal zombie behind him said. Oh. Feng Jiuji's eyes flashed with joy. He asked earnestly, I would like to hear more. At almost the same time, another intense battle was coming to an end. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Fairy Xianxia and the others had injuries as they breathed heavily, in a rough state. Humph. It was due to my inferior skills you captured me today. You are free to kill me at your own convenience. But if you want my immortal goo or immortal materials, you can keep dreaming. Trapped in the middle, Qin Baisheng, who failed to escape, was bathed in blood as he maintained his final stance. Fairy Xianxia smiled bitterly as she shook her head. Lord Vice Envoy, we would not dare to take your life. We have said it already, you are our leader. Humph. Qin Baisheng's face was cold as ice. He was very alert. Nonsense. In order to obtain my immortal goo and immortal materials, you are making up such a terrible lie. Do you think I am a child? Lord Vice Envoy, you are a member of Shadow Sect. The reason why you cannot remember things is because your soul was modified. Fairy Xianxia explained patiently. Bullshit. Qin Baisheng rebuked angrily, even if something was done to my soul, it is precisely my own soul, how can I not detect anything wrong? When you make a lie, try to ensure it's convincing. Fairy Xianxu's smile became even more bitter. The black-robed Gu immortal said, Lord Vice Envoy, think of this from another angle. We are not stupid, why would we use this lie out of all excuses? The reason why your soul looks like it's unmodified is because we used our sect's supreme methods. Even a rank 9 Gu immortal cannot find any issues with it. But there is a problem, because the person himself cannot detect it due to the perfection of the modification. As time passes, he would become another person entirely. Lord, you had personally designed this plan from the beginning. I had warned you that this was dangerous. After all, Lord Envoy himself was a great example. But Lord was insistent on this. You said that to deceive the enemy, you need to deceive yourself. Inside this soul path immortal goo, your remnant soul is inside. As long as you fuse it into yourself, you will learn about the truth. Fairy Xianxia said, taking out a soul path immortal goo. Qin Baisheng looked at this immortal goo silently. Fairy Xianxia continued, actually, Lord Vice Envoy, you must have noticed. In the battle earlier, we did not use any fatal methods, even when you injured us heavily, we did not have any intention to kill you. I'll give this immortal Gu to you, you can inspect it yourself. The soul path immortal Gu flew slowly, landing in front of Qin Baisheng. She really gave it to him. Xianxia, who was at the side, watched in shock. He Qing was expressionless, he healed his injuries as he watched. Qin Baisheng was extremely alert, he used many methods to inspect it. After confirming that the immortal Gu had no issues, he placed it in his hands and looked into it mentally. Soon, he realized that there really was a lump of soul inside this immortal Gu. Furthermore, this lump of soul vaguely seemed to have a close relationship with him. Qin Baisheng hesitated for a moment before chuckling, he squeezed with his fingers and broke the immortal Gu. Scoundrels. This method was your trump card, right? Even using all my knowledge and experience, I could not see any flaws, but your attempt to trap me, even with your glib tongues, will end in failure. This. Xianxia shouted reflexively, he felt heartache. This was an immortal Gu, he actually destroyed it. He Qing was a little surprised, towards Qin Baisheng's action, he couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration. This was absolute self-confidence that could allow this action of his. Even in a desperate situation, Qin Baisheng's confidence towards himself had never wavered. He Qing thought to himself, if it were him, facing such words from his enemies, what would he choose to do? Lord Vice Envoy, you. The black-robed Gu immortal shouted, he became anxious, how will we salvage this now? No worry. Fairy Xiangyu's lips curled up, as expected, Lord Vice Envoy understands yourself best. If this was any other place, when the immortal Gu was destroyed, the soul would dissipate. But thankfully, we spent a lot of effort and moved you here. Humph, where are we now? Qin Baisheng shouted as he asked. The surrounding fog was thick, as Fairy Xiangyu waved her sleeves, wind blew as they scattered, revealing a mountain wall. Qin Baisheng, He Qing, and Xianxia realized that they were in a valley now. Luopa Valley. Qin Baisheng took a few glances and his heart jumped. As expected of Lord Vice Envoy. Fairy Xiangyu waved her sleeves, countless Gu worms flew up from the valley, using an immense number of white lotus giant silkworm Gu as the foundation, they formed a super Gu formation. The Gu formation activated, the force in it shocked He Zi, He Qing, and Xianxia. Ah! Qin Baisheng shouted in pain. After a dozen breaths of time, everything ended. Tens of Gu worms, including a good number of immortal Gu, flew up from the valley, returning to Qin Baisheng's immortal aperture like birds returning to their nest. Qin Baisheng regained his full strength. Finally, I am back. Qin Baisheng looked at his hands, he said in a low voice, his expression was cold. Subordinate pays respects to Lord Vice Envoy, congratulations to Lord for returning safely. Fairy Xiangyu and the black-robed Gu immortal knelt on the ground, while He Qing and Xianxia bowed slightly. Only He Zi was still acting rebellious, crossing his arms and watching coldly. Qin Baisheng recalled everything that happened, snorting coldly, Feng Jiu Gu. I will remember this, sooner or later, I will settle the score with you. Xiangyu, you only found these people. Just them alone will not be able to take down Lanya blessed land. I have performed poorly in this task. Fairy Xiangyu rapidly lowered her head and admitted error. He Qing and Xianxia's expressions changed, but He Zi opened his mouth and showed his sharp teeth, growling, Qin Baisheng, never mind that you are acting so mysteriously, you actually dare to look down on me? Chapter 772, Silence and Sigh. Boom! Amidst an intense explosion, He Zi was like a pile of mush as he collapsed in the huge pit, He tried to get up, but it was like there was a huge formless mountain pressing down on his body, the immense weight prevented him from moving at all. Xianxia's eyes were blood red, his expression was distorted, he growled unceasingly. Qin Baisheng's arms were lowered, he looked at the pit expressionlessly, at the struggling Xianxia. One move, just one move, he completely immobilized Xianxia. Xianxia's eyes were full of shock. He Qing squinted, he hid the intense shock in his mind as he thought, what immortal killer move is this? Once he used it, Xianxia was unable to use a single killer move. Xianxia was completely immobilized, but his body is unharmed, this should be a soul path killer move. As for Fairy Jiangyu, she showed no sign of surprise. Meanwhile, the mysterious black-robed Gu immortal's face was covered by his hood, his expression could not be seen. If you have the guts, let me use my killer moves. Sneak attacking me from the start, how strong can you be? I refuse to accept this. Xianxia almost cracked his teeth, he was sprawled in the pit as he looked at Qin Baisheng, speaking with much difficulty and anger. Qin Baisheng snorted in disdain, he looked down at Xianxia as he smiled slightly, striking first gives you the advantage, does a demonic path Gu immortal like you not know that? It seems that I overestimated you, in a real battle, who would care if you accept it or not? As long as the enemy is defeated, that is true ability. As he said this, Qin Baisheng paused, his expression turned cold, right now, you are meat on the chopping block, you are at my mercy. You are to accept this whether you like it or not. I will give you 3 breaths of time, submit to me, or I will kill you right here. Xianxia did not hesitate, I submit. Qin Baisheng laughed, releasing the restraint. Xianxia felt the pressure lifting, he laughed fiendishly as he used his immortal killer move. At once, a piercing bright light shone out. The light came as quickly as it faded, soon after, a huge and menacing wolf appeared. The huge wolf opened its mouth, pouncing on Qin Baisheng. Qin Baisheng stood at the edge of the pit, his size was a huge contrast to the huge wolf. Before the huge wolf reached him, a strong burst of wind blew, causing several of the Gu immortal's robes to flutter in the wind. Xianxia turned into a huge wolf, he attacked with rage, he had an imposing aura. Xianxia and He Qing retreated, afraid of getting caught up in it. Qin Baisheng was very close to him, seeing the huge wolf approaching, he did not move, he showed a cold smile on his face, evidently, Xianxia's attack was not out of his expectations. Boom! Another loud bang entered everyone's ears. The huge wolf cried out, falling from the sky, its 4 paws were on the ground, a huge force was pressing down on the wolf's body. Xianxia was now just like earlier, completely immobilized again. In his huge wolf eyes, he showed unbelieving shock, he looked at Qin Baisheng as he shouted, this move again. What is this move called? It is not a big deal to tell you. Qin Baisheng laughed, this immortal killer move is called soul suppression. It uses the foundation of my soul to suppress your soul. Even though your body is strong, this move directly targets your soul. Without any immortal transformations that can resist soul path techniques, whatever beast you turn into cannot defeat me. Xianxia, I give you one final chance now, submit to me, or die. Facing Qin Baisheng's immense power, Xianxia turned silent. He Qing and Xianxia looked at each other, they sensed this series of events was anything but reassuring. Sha Huang. Feng Jiugu looked at Dragon Commander Yi Cha and the others who were leaving, his mouth muttering unendingly. The information we obtained this time has no practical use. Around Feng Jiugu, the central continent Gu immortals were mumbling in unhappiness. No, we obtained a lot of information. Feng Jiugu chuckled, firstly, this immortal zombie, Sha Huang, was able to enter the Zombie Alliance, it proves that he is a Northern Plains Gu immortal. Even if he is not born here, he definitely ascended into an immortal here. Since he disguised himself, that means that his true identity cannot be known to others. Finally, he has a huge force or some great expert backing him up. This force might be the one which caused the collapse of 88 True Yang Building. Lord Jiu Gu makes much sense. Towards Feng Jiu Ji's deduction, the other three immortals nodded in agreement. What should our actions be next? Feng Jiu Gu thought for a while before saying, we will meet up with Old Oracle's group and tell the new information to them, allowing them to do further deductions. Snowy Mountain Blessed Land, First Peak. What? Soft jade sand hasn't been fully collected yet? Old Ancestor Shui who looked at the list as he questioned unhappily. You. Ovals upt. Tez on NOV/L/BI.com. The person he was questioning was the owner of the fourth peak of Snowy Mountain, Li Pengwang. Li Pengwang, who had a fierce reputation and rebellious nature, lowered his head, saying politely, Old Ancestor, please appease your anger, I met with a group of sky chief beasts, I had to stop my collection. If I go to White Heaven again, I will definitely succeed. Go ahead and prepare. I am not targeting you, but this is the first round of immortal material collection, and you already had such a problem. How will you prove yourself and remain as the fourth peak's owner? I raised you to this spot personally, with this poor performance, what will the other peak heads think of me? Old Ancestor Shui who said a few more sentences before waving his sleeves, asking Li Pengwang who was apologizing to leave. Li Pengwang had bad luck, he was attacked by a sky chief beast group. He was heavily injured, but he still brought back a portion of the soft jade sand, it was already not easy. After Li Pengwang left, a female immortal walked out from the hall behind. In the entirety of Snowy Mountain Blessed Land, only this female immortal could speak to Old Ancestor Shuehu with such a tone. Old Ancestor Shuehu looked over at the female immortal, his expression became more gentle, wife, you do not know the crucial information in this, thus you think I am overly harsh on the peak heads. I searched Ma Hongyun's soul, I know all of this lad's history. Fortune rivaling Heaven Gu's power is truly fearsome. Do you think Li Pengwang's encounter was coincidental? That is not the case. Not just him, the other peak heads also faced difficulty when collecting the materials. All this is due to fortune rivaling heaven affecting us secretly. Any acts that would harm its owner would cause a backlash from fortune rivaling heaven, suppressing our luck. There is such a thing. The female immortal, Lady Wan Shou, asked. According to the theory of luck, us Gu immortals have extraordinary luck that protects us. But fortune rivaling heaven is the emperor of luck, thus, we are still affected by it. The longer this drags on, the more uncertainties would occur. In the end, not only would the Gu refinement fail, we might even attract a huge disaster. Old Ancestor Shuehu explained slowly. As the owner of the second peak, Lady Wan Shou understood now, she thought about it before frowning, if that is the case, wouldn't it be a huge obstacle when I refine Gu? Lady Wan Shou was one of the four most famous refinement path Gu immortals in Northern Plains. According to Old Ancestor Shuehu's plan, she was supposed to use Ma Hongyun as the main material and refine fortune rivaling Heaven Gu at the end. Old Ancestor Shuehu nodded, that is why this time, not only do we need to prepare several sets of Gu refinement immortal materials, we also need to use other luck path immortal Gu to protect our luck. Thankfully, Ma Hongyun is the main material, we saved a lot of immortal materials compared to refining fortune rivaling heaven from scratch. Even so, we prepared way too many immortal materials, we are almost going to exceed Snowy Mountain's capability. This refinement is way too important, we almost used up all of our life savings. Lady Wan Shou frowned as she said. Old Ancestor Shuehu laughed, holding her waist, he consoled, wife, you're afraid that the refinement will fail. Lady Wan Shou nodded, looking at her husband. Even a refinement path great-grandmaster could fail, let alone me. Ha ha ha, just go ahead and refine it, wife, whether it succeeds or fails, I will accept the result without any hatred or anger. I have already used up all of my potential to reach this level, I have no confidence in my future calamities and tribulations. Fortune rivaling heaven Gu is my hope of breaking this situation, oh, hopefully, it will succeed in time. Old ancestor Shuehu said as he sighed. Fong Yuan, go and carry that box of goods. The caravan steward pointed at a box, shouting loudly. Yes. Fong Yuan replied, climbing onto a black-skinned fat beetle as he moved that wooden box from the very top. This lad actually has strength path cultivation, I totally missed it. Seeing Fong Yuan completing his mission easily, the caravan steward's eyes shined with a cold light. No, I already promised second young master, I cannot fail. Thinking so, the caravan steward raised his whip and lashed at Fong Yuan's back. With a loud cracking sound. Fong Yuan's shirt was torn open, a deep whip scar was imprinted on Fong Yuan's back. The intense pain assaulted his heart. Fong Yuan fell on the ground and shivered as blood quickly oozed out of his wound. In his previous life, in the caravan, because he rejected a certain young master's recruitment, he was heavily suppressed and humiliated, the memories were surfacing again. A sense of rage rose deep within Fong Yuan, but he quickly suppressed it. Why are you wasting time, move quickly. The caravan steward was simply finding trouble with him, he scolded Fong Yuan. Fong Yuan had rank 3 cultivation level, but he did not use it. After all, with enough power, he would have killing intent, that was the dream realm's trap, luring him to attack so that his rage could be drawn out. After enduring for a day, facing difficulties from the steward, Fong Yuan went into the tent and refined his dream path mortal Gu. 5 scenes had passed in this dream realm, I am going to succeed. Fong Yuan looked at the Gu worm that was forming, feeling pleased. But during the night, just as he was refining the Gu, a group of beasts charged into the caravan's camp. Even with Fong Yuan's defensive methods, he could not defend himself from the assault of the beast group, he ended in failure. Fong Yuan opened his eyes, leaving the dream realm, he was still in Dang Hun Palace. Checking his immortal aperture, he found a message from Fairy Li Shan. It explained her current circumstances. Old ancestor Shui who had ordered all of the peak heads to collect immortal materials. Fairy Li Shan had left Snowy Mountain blessed land and it was not safe to leave He Lu Lan alone. Thus, Fairy Li Shan urged Fong Yuan to hurry up, and she also told him about the situation in Northern Plains Zombie Alliance. Someone was investigating Sha Huang's identity. They have investigated to this extent already? In the dim room, Fong Yuan frowned and sighed faintly. Chapter 773, Saving He Lu Lan. Originally, when Fong Yuan joined the auction, he had expected that there would be many clues left behind, it would give others many important clues to investigate. But the other party's investigation was faster than Fong Yuan's expectations. But compared to his gains, this was an inconsequential cost. Fong Yuan quickly focused his mind, using the Dream Realm Mortal Gu in his mind to enter the Dream Realm again. Ever since he refined the first Dream Realm Mortal Gu, because he had an advantage of using Dream Path Gu, his Dream Realm exploration became easier, and his efficiency became higher. Dream realms were deep, traps were everywhere. Because of Fong Yuan's experience from his previous life, he avoided most of the dangers. In his first 10 Dream Realm trips, he could refine 3 Dream Realm Mortal Gu. But as the number of Dream Path Mortal Gu increased, his success rate rose from 30% to 50%. 50% success rate was one of the highest in the present-day 5 regions. Because Dream Realms had just started manifesting, although most of the forces had some gains, they were starting from scratch, exploring step by step. Like this, he refined Gu endlessly without any rest. Half a month later in Hu Immortal Blessed Land, Fong Yuan finally succeeded in refining enough Dream Path Mortal Gu. Using these Dream Path Mortal Gu, he used Unravel Mystery Immortal Gu as the core, managing to form an immortal killer move, Unravel Dream. With this trump card, Fang Yuan immediately informed Fairy Li Shan. Fairy Li Shan was out for the moment, collecting immortal materials for old ancestor Shui Hu. When she heard Fang Yuan's news, she stopped her work, disregarding old ancestor Shui Hu's chastisement, and returned to the third peak. After seeing Fang Yuan, Fairy Li Shan did not continue to hide that secret, she told him about it. Before Su Xian'er died, she had left behind a familial emotion with her daughter, He Lu Lan. Precisely because of this familial emotion, He Lu Lan could use Su Xian'er's green grape immortal essence. This allowed He Lu Lan to use Immortal Gu in Imperial Court Blessed Land when she was immortal. When Fang Yuan heard this secret, he was not surprised. In truth, he had made many guesses towards the cause of He Lu Lan's ability to use Immortal Gu as immortal. Right now, his guess was confirmed, it was not out of Fang Yuan's expectations. Even so, Fang Yuan still frowned, this is bad. One should not be influenced by their emotions in a dream realm, otherwise they will sink deeper into it. With this familial emotions influence, my immortal killer move's power will be greatly reduced. What do we do? Fairy Li Shan's expression changed, her worry was oozing on her face. She was not worried about Fang Yuan lying to her, because of the Snowy Mountain Alliance, both sides could not lie to each other. Fang Yuan did not lie, the killer move Unravel Dream had limited power. Right now, with her being deeper in Dream Realm, Unravel Dream killer move's power became more limited. Fang Yuan's expression was grim, right now, we can only give it a try. Sigh, I had 70 to 80% confidence earlier, but now I only have 20 to 30%. All in all, this was too short of a time period, I have limited Dream Path Mortal Gu. 20 to 30%, what if you fail? Fairy Li Shan immediately asked. If I fail, my soul will take major damage. But He Lu Lan is the owner of the dream, she will still be deep in her dream without any damage. But there is a benefit, once I use Unravel Dream, the dream realm will weaken, towards He Lu Lan, this is a good thing without a drawback. Fang Yuan spoke the truth. That's good. Fairy Li Shan let out a breath of cloudy air, relieved. But suddenly, she realized her words were inappropriate, she turned to look at Fang Yuan apologetically, lost for words. Fang Yuan waved his hand, stopping Fairy Li Shan from speaking, say no more, Fairy, I am not a petty person. The situation is urgent now, our identities are being searched. To prevent any issues from arising further, saving He Lu Lan is a top priority. Even if I fail, once I weaken the dream realm, it will help for the next time I enter it. Alright, enough talk, will you guard my surroundings? Find out. Ted. Uvels on N. /v/elbin.co/m. That is only natural. Fairy Li Shan thanked him courteously. Next, Fang Yuan sat beside He Lu Lan who was lying in her bed, activating the Dream Path Mortal Gu in his mind. These Mortal Gu were in his mind, arranging themselves into a mystical Gu formation. As they activated one by one, the Gu formation started. At the last step, Fang Yuan used his green grape immortal essence and activated Unravel Mystery Immortal Gu. Unravel Mystery Immortal Gu gave off a bright light in his immortal aperture. The light rushed up into his brain, after being converted by the Dream Path Gu formation, it turned into a green-purple light. Fang Yuan opened his blood-red eyes, as a green-purple light flickered in his pupils. Immortal Killer Move, Unravel Dream. A loud sound rang out in Fang Yuan's mind. The scenery in front of him changed drastically. Fang Yuan was still sitting on the ground, but he was not in Fairy Li Shan's secret room, but in a hall instead. I am inside He Lu Lan's dream realm. Fang Yuan's body shook slightly, he had an understanding deep within himself, he diverted his gaze and looked around. A banquet was being held in the hall. The higher-ups of Su tribe were hosting a young Gu master enthusiastically. Su tribe leader raised his cup, laughing loudly, "Young master He Cheng, a toast to you." He Cheng was sitting at the front of the left row. He raised his cup with both hands. "Thank you, Su tribe leader." Saying this, he raised his head and gulped the drink in one mouthful. The rank 3 elders around him were cheering at He Cheng for having such a candid attitude. He Cheng cupped his fists, his tone carried the aura of pride that a young genius was meant to have. Fang Yuan saw this and had a thought in his mind. Looking at himself, he was an elder of Su tribe in this dream realm. His aperture was full of wood-path mortal Gu, there was quite a number. Fang Yuan just need one look to know that he was a rank 3 wood-path healing Gu master. Fang Yuan frowned. Wood-path was not his specialty, even more so a healing Gu master. He sighed mentally, consoling himself, "This is not my own dream realm. As an outsider, having rank 3 cultivation level is already quite good. But I wonder where He Lulan is." Just as he was thinking that, a female came out of the back of the hall, wearing an attendant's attire. She resembled He Lulan and had an incredibly beautiful appearance. But she was less dominating and more gentle. Her aura was quite different from He Lulan. "It is Su Xianxia," Fang Yuan thought, recognizing this woman. Su tribe leader's cup was empty. Su Xianxia carried the wine and was about to pour it, but Su tribe leader chided her instead. "You must be blind, go pour wine for our Su tribe's esteemed guest." Su Xianxia replied meekly, walking over to He Cheng's table. He Cheng's gaze was shining. He looked at Su Xianxia's face. Only until she finished pouring the wine did he jolt to awareness. Looking at Su Xianxia's retreating back, he stood up and asked, "May I know your name, miss?" Su Xianxia turned around, bowing as he lowered her head, replying softly, "My name is Su Xianxia." Su Xianxia. Xianxia. He Cheng muttered. He only sat down after Su Xianxia entered the hall and left his vision. Ha ha ha. Su tribe leader saw all of this. He laughed. "Xianxia is a girl I brought back from the battlefield many years ago. My wife had been raising her all these years, watching her grow up. Even though she has the status of an attendant, we treat her like our own daughter." "Is that so?" He Cheng muttered. He continued feasting, but the food felt flavorless. After the banquet ended, He Cheng was given a high-class guest room to stay in. Su tribe leader gathered the elders, discussing about the plan to kill He Cheng in the secret room. "Tribe leader, are we really striking? They are He tribe, a super force that has Gu immortals." An elder was worried. Su tribe leader's expression turned sharp. "So what if they are He tribe? Once this deal is done, our entire tribe will move to Snowy Mountain blessed land to live. By then, there will not be the imperial court contest or the 10-year blizzard. He tribe is a super force, but Snowy Mountain blessed land is the headquarters of the demonic path." The elders were all fantasizing from these words. Su tribe leader looked around and saw everyone's hesitant expressions. He said harshly, "At this final moment, why are you hesitating? Even if we do nothing, or even snitch to He tribe, what can we do? If we offend Snowy Mountain, they will not let us off. Do not forget that our entire Su tribe's lives were saved by that fairy. If that fairy could save us so easily, she could also slaughter us all without difficulty." Being shocked by these words, the secret room became chilly. The elders saw this fact and finally faced reality. Tribe leader is right. We had already made that He Cheng lad drunk. I will strike now and take his head. The battle hall elder shouted. "It will not be easy to kill He Cheng. Don't think that he is alone. There are hidden experts in the background protecting him. He tribe is a super force. While He Cheng has great talent, he will have no less than 5 people guarding him." Su tribe leader spoke about the information he had. Fang Yuan was among them. He understood what to say when he heard this. then we will execute the orders of Lord Tribe Leader. Yes, Lord Tribe Leader, go ahead and give the orders. The elders were enthusiastic. All right. The tribe leader was overjoyed, giving out orders straight away. He had obviously thought this over, he almost said them out of reflex immediately. Because Fang Yuan was the medicine hall elder and was a healing Gu master, he had weak offense and defense. He was ordered to deal with the strongest enemies by supporting two other Gu masters. The moment he left the secret room, the dream realm changed again, entering the second scene. The night had a bright moon and strong, howling winds. A rank 3 He tribe Gu master stood arrogantly, looking at the surrounding people with much anger. Your Su tribe is really daring, you dare to attack young master He Ching of our tribe. Don't waste time speaking with him. Kill him first, then go and help the others. The two Su tribe elders were acting as offense and defense respectively, charging towards the He tribe Gu master. Only Fang Yuan was left behind to back them up. I have not discovered He Lu Lan yet, it seems she is not here. Judging by this scene, I can only enter the third scene after killing the Gu master here. Fang Yuan thought about it as he activated his Woodpath Gu worms, healing the Gu masters on his side. Initially, the He tribe Gu master was strong and had the upper hand. But after an intense battle, because of Fang Yuan's healing, the two sides mutually sustained injuries and entered a deadlock. Suddenly, the He tribe Gu master shouted angrily, charging out while injured and attacking Fang Yuan. Oh no, stop him. Medicine Hall Elder, dodge. The two Su tribe Gu masters were shocked and furious, they lost their bearings. Chapter 774, Unravel Dream Succeeds. Dream realms were dangerous. In dream realms, every time one got injured, their soul would suffer great damage. If their soul injuries were severe, they would feel sluggish, they would feel irritation within themselves, their emotions would be drawn out more easily, thus sinking deeper into the dream and be unable to free themselves. Seeing that the He tribe Gu master was attacking, Su tribe's two Gu masters' hearts sank. The He tribe Gu master had strong fighting strength, even with them joining forces, they could only fight with him evenly. As the medicine hall elder, Fang Yuan's strength was not high. The two Su tribe Gu masters could only hope that Fang Yuan could last long enough until they could reinforce him. But the He tribe Gu master had been plotting this for a while, even if he had to risk an injury, he wanted to kill the healing Gu master, he certainly had a strong offensive method left. Quickly dodge it. Persevere for a few breaths, we are coming. The He tribe Gu master quickly shortened the distance between him and Fang Yuan, but Fang Yuan remained unmoved, causing the two Su tribe Gu masters to feel anxious. Fang Yuan was not scared at all, he laughed coldly. He dared to enter He Lu Lan's dream realm not because he was rash, but because he had prepared his trump card. This trump card was the immortal killer move, Unravel Dream. Unravel. Fang Yuan stretched out his right hand, his palm facing the He tribe Gu master. At the same time, his eyes flashed with a green-purple light. He tribe Gu master's eyes shined with intense despair, amidst his anger and shock, his body faded and his speed became slower. When he was a few steps away from Fang Yuan, he vanished into thin air. What method is this? The two Su tribe Gu masters behind him were staring with shocked expressions. A killer move that I thought of, it is nothing important. Fang Yuan lowered his right arm, making a random excuse. Nothing important. One of the two Gu masters stared with wide-opened eyes. Fang Yuan seemed like a desolate beast in his eyes. Killing him in one move, had we known this, why would we fight to the death? Another Gu master sighed, he had a complex tone, it was a joyful yet begrudged tone. Alright, let's move quickly, go and reinforce the others. The most important matter now is to kill He Ching. Fang Yuan reminded. Su tribe's two Gu masters nodded, now was not the time to talk about Fang Yuan's killer move, the three quickly moved and went to the deeper parts of the grassland. Fang Yuan followed the two Gu masters of Su tribe, sprinting as the scene changed again. The night was dark, the sky had no moon, only several stars were shining. Fang Yuan and Su tribe leader, all four people, charged towards the direction of Heicheng. I see him, after flipping over that mountain, we can reach Heicheng. In their rush, an elder used his investigative Gu worm as he spoke. I said long ago, he was hit by my tracking Gu, no matter where he does, he will not be able to run away. Battle Hall Elder said proudly. Academy Elder died in battle, we must take revenge for her. Since it is a battle, there will be wins, losses, life and death. Academy Elder sacrificed herself for us, she will definitely be praised. On the other hand, Su Xianxia betrayed our tribe, helping that Heicheng lad escape, this is an unforgivable crime. Saying this, Su tribe leader's expression was dark, even though Su Xianxia is my goddaughter, in the name of justice, I cannot be selfish. When we capture her, we will punish her according to the tribe rules. Hearing this, the other elders let out a sigh of relief, they said, tribe leader is wise. Wise? He he he. A cold laugh came from the mound behind everyone. Who is it? Everyone stopped in their tracks. A figure slowly appeared on the mound. Su tribe leader and the others' hearts sank, it was an enemy. With just this hiding ability, it was incredible, if they did not show up intentionally, with just their investigative methods, they would not discover them. The question was, did they use a Gu worm or a killer move? To think that there was still an expert like you protecting Heicheng. Su tribe leader tried to stall for time, as several elders moved out, ascending up the mound in an encircling formation. The mysterious Gu master looked around, but did not move, remaining at the same spot. Suddenly, the battle on the mound erupted. Fin the new. St. Uvels on n /velben.com. Two other mysterious Gu masters ambushed Su tribe's Gu masters, striking ruthlessly and viciously. In one move, they heavily injured one, while lightly injuring the other. The Su tribe Gu master who was heavily injured retreated quickly, while the lightly injured one was still fighting partway up the mound. There was a helper. Su tribe leader's heart jumped when he saw this, having a bad feeling in his heart. The three Gu masters who suddenly appeared were experts, they had above-average battle strength. They probably made many arrangements when they ambushed at this location, it would be difficult to break through their obstruction and catch up to Heicheng. He Lu Lan. Fang Yuan, as the healing Gu master, was behind Su tribe leader, his eyes shined when he saw the Gu master partway up the mound. The appearance of He Lu Lan's body was the one she had when she was He tribe leader, she had broad shoulders and a thick waist, she was rough and fierce. At this moment, she was fighting with the lightly injured Su tribe leader, they were engaged in fierce battle, her great battle strength was beating the opponent back. She was not like Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan was an outsider in this dream realm. There was no identity allocated to him in the dream originally, thus, when he entered the dream, he needed to take the place of another character. But He Lu Lan was the owner of the dream, as the dream owner, she was part of the dream realm's creation. As for her appearance, this was how He Lu Lan saw herself in the depths of her heart. He Lu Lan, it's me, Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan did not hesitate, he shouted and went past Su tribe leader, running towards He Lu Lan. Medicine Hall Elder. Su tribe leader shouted in shock. Fang Yuan did not care about him, he rapidly ascended the mound. Scoundrel, so you are an imposter. No wonder you had such a strong killer move. A Su tribe Gu master who was in the second scene with Fang Yuan exposed his identity. Fang Yuan. He Lu Lan heard this name and her expression was dazed, but ruthless light shined in her eyes soon afterwards. All of you, scram. Saying this, she waved her hand and shot a dark vortex killer move at Fang Yuan. At the same time, the other two mysterious Gu masters also charged at Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan snorted coldly, saying, "Unravel dream." Green-purple light shined in his body, be it the dark vortex or the two Gu masters, they vanished into thin air within a few breaths of time. What killer move is this? Seeing this, all of the remaining Gu masters stared with wide-opened eyes. He Lu Lan's gaze shined, she was very wary of Fang Yuan. She suddenly retreated, leaving this small mound. He Lu Lan! Fang Yuan shouted helplessly, chasing after her. He Lu Lan was the dream owner, since she was dreaming now, unravel dream could not affect her. Chase! We must kill He Cheng. Su tribe leader and the others gritted their teeth, they had no other way now, they had to follow. He Cheng seemed to be injured, he was moving slowly and not far away. Beside him, Su Xianxia was holding onto him, limping forward at a slow speed. Fang Yuan saw this and his heart jumped, this seemed like a trap. He Lu Lan quickly met up with He Cheng and Su Xianxia. Strong warrior, please leave with young master, I will hold them off. Su Xianxia did not recognize He Lu Lan, she shouted anxiously. You are a mere mortal woman, you have no Gu master cultivation, how can you block these Gu masters? Now that you have betrayed your tribe, you are dead meat. He Lu Lan had a complex expression when she looked at Su Xianxia. It is too late, strong warrior, quickly leave. As Fang Yuan got closer, Su Xianxia shouted as she turned back. He Lu Lan sighed, she stretched out her palm and slammed at He Cheng's head. With a loud smash, He Cheng's head broke apart like a watermelon, the brain matter flew everywhere. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. He Lu Lan raised her head, shouting, He Cheng, I finally killed you with my own hands. Nobody can stop me from taking your life. Ha ha ha. Oh no. Hearing He Lu Lan's shout, Fang Yuan's heart sank. At once, the dream realm scene changed. In the hall, among the toasting of wine cups, Su tribe leader and He Cheng were drinking together, it was a lively atmosphere. Su tribe leader raised his cup, laughing loudly, young master He Cheng, a toast to you. He Cheng was sitting at the front of the left row, he raised his cup with both hands, thank you, Su tribe leader. This is a recurring dream, the three scenes are looping non-stop. Fang Yuan looked around, and inspected himself again. He found that he was no longer that medicine hall elder, he was a rank 2 metal path Gu master guard. He was standing at the door of the hall, guarding the door. As expected, from rank 3 to rank 2 peak stage, my strength fell. Fang Yuan's was bitter inside, this is bad, He Lu Lan has sunk into the dream, she had no reaction even after hearing my name. The more dream realm cycles that occur, the deeper we will sink into the dream. This dream had already pulled out He Lu Lan's killing intent and hatred towards her father. The more He Lu Lan wants to take revenge, the deeper she will sink into the dream realm. How can I wake her up? For a while, even Fang Yuan had no idea. 7 days and 7 nights later, in snowy mountain blessed land time. He Lu Lan, who was lying on the bed, opened her eyes with a shift in her aura. Her lost gaze became clearer, looking at the 8-armed immortal beside her bed, she understood in her heart, so it was a dream realm, I was saved by Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan opened his eyes forcefully, his aura was weak and his soul had suffered a huge blow, his mind was extremely drained. After dozens of rounds in He Lu Lan's dream realm, using the killer move Unravel Dream, he accumulated experience and failed repeatedly. After many attempts, Fang Yuan killed He Cheng before He Lu Lan could, ruining her goal. But the dream realm did not dissipate, He Lu Lan's hatred was not resolved, the dream realm changed again. Only until the 17th change, Fang Yuan roused He Lulan's consciousness, and she realized she was dreaming. When He Lulan understood this, Fang Yuan gained the initiative. After 8 more rounds, the two finally overcame the difficulties, breaking the dream realm and escaping. I am going back now. As for the compensation, Fairy Li Shan will explain it to you. Fang Yuan's soul was heavily injured. He did not dare to stay for long. Even when he used fixed immortal travel, it was with much difficulty. Compensation. He Lulan was about to thank him, but when she heard these words, an ominous feeling rose in her heart. Chapter 775, Dream Path Pioneer. Western Desert. Guh. Gu Immortal Tang Miao's body shook, she opened her eyes and spat out a mouthful of blood. Another failure. Tang Miao's expression was pale as paper. Compared to the injuries on her body, she felt even more despair towards the failure in exploring the dream realm. Tang Miao's soul was heavily injured, her head was spinning as her body felt heavy. She sighed in her heart, "Brother, I was useless and could not save you. Even after exploring the dream realm deeply, I could not find you." She shut her eyes, bitter tears flowed down her cheeks, forming 2 streams of tears. A moment later, the anxious Tang clan Gu immortals rushed over, coming to the secret room and standing in front of Tang Miao. Tang clan's first supreme elder, Tang Yang, frowned. He looked at Tang Miao who was sitting on the bed as he said heavily, "I did not think that after spending so much effort to borrow the rank 7 emotion Gu from Xiao tribe, the dream realm exploration still suffered a heavy loss." Sigh, dream realms in themselves are mystical and strange, moreover, this is thieving heaven demon Venerable's dream realm. Gu Immortal Tang Lan sighed. The prophecy of 3 Venerables had spread throughout the world. The information regarding Great Dream Immortal Venerable was known to not just Central Continent, but the super forces of the other 4 regions as well. Most of them were exploring dream realms, accumulating experience and developing new Gu worms. As a super force of Western Desert, Tang Clan had accidentally discovered thieving Heaven Demon Venerable's dream realm many years ago. This discovery triggered the enthusiasm of Tang Clan in researching Dream Path. In order to explore this dream realm, Tang Clan's #1 genius Gu Immortal, Tang Fongming, had taken this important mission from the clan, but he suffered a great loss and was still lost in the dream realm now. His sister, Tang Miao, in order to save her brother, had tried many times but failed repeatedly. This loss was even more severe. In order to explore the dream realm this time, Tang Clan spent a huge sum to borrow the emotion path Immortal Gu and entrusted hope in her. The result was ice-cold disappointment. Although the Immortal Gu was useful and could suppress my emotions, preventing the dream realm from drawing them out, this also made me an outsider. I was always in the outskirts of the dream's core. This time, I did not even manage to discover brother's identity. As she sat on the bed, Tang Miao tended to her injuries as she said solemnly. Sigh, it seems that dream path Gu worms are needed to explore dream realms. But our Tang clan has already explored the dream realm for 60 years, we have only created over a dozen dream realm mortal Gu, they are all rank 3 and below. More than half of them have extremely limited use. More specifically, only 4 or 5 are suited for dream realm exploration. The hardest part was the start, especially at this initial stage, it was extremely difficult. The pioneers were moving forward without certainty, every small step was a huge success. Regarding Dream Path, nobody had any experience, their knowledge was like sheets of blank paper. Once they passed this difficult initial step, and accumulated enough experience, their advantage would become larger, like a rolling snowball. Towards the middle to late stage, their advantage would be clear, the difficulty of researching Dream Path would be greatly reduced. In Fang Yuan's memories, there was a time when a new Dream Path Gu worm was created every day, the varieties were as numerous as the stars in the sky. That was a time when Dream Path was flourishing like flowers in spring. In human history, each of these grand eras would lead to the birth of a supreme expert. According to the prophecy of 3 venerables, this grand expert should be Great Dream Immortal Venerable. But Feng Yuan did not live until Great Dream Immortal Venerable appeared. Speaking of which, at this initial stage, Tang clan was already at the lead of the era. Even when compared to the 10 great ancient sects of Central Continent, their progress was among the highest. But the limitations of this era greatly restricted them. It was like a blind man walking down a path, without any clues. They could only explore step by step. After endless effort was spent, they only had a small result, over a dozen dream path mortal Gu. And among these results, the truly useful dream path mortal Gu were extremely few. For example, on Earth, a newly created experimental product would be very far from military usage, and even further from civilian use. Moreover, this innovation and exploration was not possible for every Gu immortal. One needed talent and aptitude. In this aspect, Gu immortals who only followed certain rules were useless. Without a creative mind, they were inferior to even mortal Gu masters. Tang clan had many Gu immortals, but only Tang Fongming was suited for this. These dozen or so dream path mortal Gu were mostly his creation. One could say that he was the main force behind Tang clan's dream realm exploration. The regretful thing was, Tang Fongming was trapped in the dream realm now. Because of this, Tang clan's progress had come to a halt. Tang Fongming's body was intact, the clan's Gu immortals were protecting it. But his soul that was in the dream realm had already left his body, it had vanished. Once one was trapped in the dream realm, their soul would weaken continuously, weakening until they died. The Tang clan Gu immortals, especially Tang Miao, were extremely anxious, but there was nothing they could do. "How is my brother now?" After stabilizing her injuries, Tang Miao asked. The Supreme Elders looked at each other. One of them spoke with much difficulty. "We can protect his body, but there are almost no guts Gu in the market. We can't buy them any longer." Tang Miao frowned, asking anxiously, "What is going on?" The Gu immortal from earlier replied, "You know that there is only one person selling guts Gu, it is a monopoly. But not long ago, this seller stopped releasing the product into the market for an unknown reason. Even though there are still guts Gu in the market, without the source supplier, it is drying out. Right now, the market cannot satisfy our demands." Guts Gu was among the best methods to strengthen the soul, and had no drawbacks, and most importantly it took effectiveness quickly. Spectral Soul Demon Venerable had once commented, this was the #1 soul strengthening method in the world. He was absolutely right. For Tang Fongming, Guts Gu was the method to save his life. Without Guts Gu, brother will. Tang Miao was anxious, her tone was flustered as she said with a shred of hope, asking, "Why are they not selling it? Is there so little circulation in the market?" This time, Tang clan first Supreme Elder spoke. "We had contacted the seller and promised huge profits, but there was no response. These last days, the Guts Gu that are preserving Tang Fongming's life are the remaining Guts Gu in the market that our tribe is purchasing with a huge sum. By now, the Guts Gu supply has dried out, barely any is left." Tang Miao heard this and her heart sank to rock bottom, her breathing became rough. Tang clan had ordinary soul strengthening methods. Earlier, before Guts Gu were sold in Treasure Yellow Heaven, they used these methods to preserve Tang Fongming's life. But now, Tang Fongming was too deep in the dream, his soul was weakening too quickly, these methods were becoming useless, the recovery could not keep up with his weakening. Without Guts Gu, Tang Fongming would die in his dream. What could they do? Tang Miao gritted her teeth, she frowned as she stared at these Gu immortals deeply. "I don't care. If you guys didn't give brother that mission back then, he would not be like this. Now that he is this state, are you going to just watch?" "You can't say that, what do you mean just watch? These years, we in Tang clan had spent so much effort and finances to preserve Tang Fongming's life, you are also one of us, you saw everything for yourself." Third Supreme Elder retorted. He listed many examples, they were not false, he had the evidence and proof of their actions. I don't care. Tang Miao's eyebrows were in a frown, her indigo color eyes were gathering rage, even though the surface was calm, it was deep like an abyss. Third Supreme Elder, say no more. First Supreme Elder stretched out his hand and stopped him. Third Supreme Elder stopped speaking, as First Supreme Elder sighed deeply while gazing at Tang Miao, who was extremely furious and stubborn. Tang Fongming and Tang Miao had a close sibling relationship, all of the Tang clan Gu immortals knew this. This pair of siblings were once stripped of their statuses and mercilessly abandoned when they were young. The siblings went through much hardship and survived. Due to a fortuitous encounter, the brother, Tang Fongming, became a Gu immortal, while his sister, Tang Miao, became a rank 5 peak stage Gu master. The two charged back to Tang clan to take revenge. The Tang clan Gu immortals appeared and mediated with Tang Fongming. Eventually, they sacrificed a band of mortal higher-ups and managed to obtain the return of Tang Fongming. Compared to a Gu immortal, even if the sacrifice was a huge number of mortals, what was that worth? Tang Fongming understood the situation, he joined Tang clan and used the clan's help to make his sister, Tang Miao, a Gu immortal. But Tang Miao was not as big-hearted as her brother, she still had negative preconceptions against Tang clan, she had hidden resentment and indignation. Right now, when her brother's life was at stake, any sort of explanation was useless to her. Top V L updates on n/o/v/lb/in.com. Thus, First Supreme Elder said to Tang Miao with a sorrowful expression, I discussed this with the elders for 3 days and 3 nights, there are only 3 ways to help Fongming now. What 3 ways? Tang Miao's expression softened, she immediately asked. The best method is to find an ancient soul beast and kill it. By fusing its soul into Fongming's body, we can use killer moves to nourish his soul with that soul, allowing Fongming to survive this ordeal. The second best method is to use the blood path immortal Gu in the clan to use a method of sensing, forcibly retrieving Fongming's soul. As for the worst method, it is to find that lone cultivator, White Sea Shatua, for help. After First Supreme Elder finished his words, the bitter expression on his face intensified. Tang Miao listened and fell into deep silence. After a while, she laughed grimly, raising her head and sending them out, I need to think about this, elders, please go back first. As the Gu immortals left one by one, only Tang Miao was left. She laughed again, tears falling from her eyes, they were showing a cold, mocking expression. What best method? Once we use it, even if we succeed, the souls would fuse and you will be neither man nor beast. As for the second method, the chances of success are less than 30%, even if we do not fail, the soul called back would be greatly damaged, you might not even recognize me, your own sister. As for the last solution, there is some hope in that. Although that White Sea Shatua is a lone cultivator, he has incredible dream path proficiency, even brother praised him many times in private. But to ask him for help, we will have to pay a huge price. These old fogies are saying that only because they are concerned about the Paradise Earth immortal venerable inheritance that us siblings have in our hands. Indeed, only this inheritance can move White Sea Shatua. Thinking of this, Tang Miao wiped the tears on her face. Brother, I will not give up, even if I have to sacrifice this inheritance, I will save you. Tang Miao sat on her bed, even in the dim lighting, she still had the beauty of a flower. Chapter 776, Current Situation. Central Continent, Hu Immortal Blessed Land, Dang Hun Palace. Fong Yuan opened his eyes slowly, his red eyes shining with a ruthless light. Inspecting his own body, Fong Yuan nodded in satisfaction, he could not help but praise, I've used it so many times already, these guts Gu are truly the best in strengthening the soul. In He Lu Lan's dream, I suffered such heavy soul injuries, yet I have already recovered in such a short time. Follow EW Stories at n/VELB/in.com. He breathed in deeply, his mind was refreshed, his head was no longer as dizzy as the time when he was heavily injured. Land Spirit, where are you? Fong Yuan called out. Master, Master, have you recovered from your injuries already? At the next moment, the lively little Hu Immortal asked as she appeared before Fong Yuan, her crystal-like eyes were overflowing with intense concern. Fong Yuan, who had a green face and sharp fangs, nodded. Tell me what happened when I was healing my injuries during this time period. Little Hu Immortal shook her head. There were many things that happened, but none were major matters. A moment later, after Little Hu Immortal reported everything, Fong Yuan remained seated in his bed, not speaking. His mind was working intensely as he tried to process the information. In Central Continent, Immortal Crane's sect was busy trying to salvage the situation in the reincarnation battlefield. He Feng Yang was still busy trying to save his desolate beast flying crane, Little Nine, moving about all over the region. The 10 great ancient sects each had their restrictions, they mutually restrained and balanced each other. The person currently in the limelight was Myriad Dragon Doc's vicious lightning fiend. After coming out of his closed cultivation, he used the immortal killer move Lightning Deity and challenged a lot of people. Right now, he had battled more than 20 Gu immortals, he only had 1 draw and 1 loss, with such amazing results, his reputation was soaring. Many meddlesome Gu immortals were already comparing him with immortal Monkey King Shirley. These people did not have good intentions, because in accordance with Shirley's nature as a battle maniac, he would find vicious lightning fiend and engage in a huge battle with him. But Shirley gave no response. The Central Continent Gu immortals were troubled. Why did immortal Monkey King's behavior change? Even Combat Immortal sect had become much quieter recently. The other 9 sects found something wrong, they tried to investigate secretly. Fong Yuan knew long ago, Shirley discovered Starry Sky Grotto Heaven, and inside the Grotto Heaven, there was Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's Dream Realm. Right now, they must be attacking the Grotto Heaven at full force. Thinking of Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's Dream Realm, Fong Yuan was moved. Earlier, he had no methods against it, he could only escape pitifully from Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's Dream Realm. But now that he had the Immortal Killer move Unravel Dream, this was the supreme weapon to deal with the Dream Realm. During this period of time, Dream Path exploration is still in its initial stages. Any super force is still stuck at the stage of starting up, every step is extremely difficult, it is a path filled with thorns. The best methods are naturally Dream Path Immortal Gu, but the number of these Dream Path Immortal Gu could probably be counted on one's hands. Meanwhile, I have a Dream Path Immortal Killer move, even without a Dream Path Immortal Gu, I am far ahead of these forces. Fong Yuan was getting excited. Unravel Dream was effective in dealing with dream realms. Each time he used it, Fong Yuan gained a huge advantage. For example, just earlier, Fong Yuan saved He Lu Lan. After unraveling her dream realm, he obtained a lot of He Lu Lan's understanding toward Strength Path. This added to his Strength Path foundation, causing it to become more abundant. There is always something to learn from someone else, especially when He Lu Lan had the great strength true martial physique. She was a naturally formed Strength Path immortal seed, her natural talent in Strength Path was beyond Fong Yuan's reach. A portion of her Strength Path understanding was fully assimilated by Fong Yuan, allowing him to have great gains. If I can unravel Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's Dream Realm, my Wisdom Path attainment will improve greatly. Even without a complete Wisdom Path inheritance, I might be able to create my own one. Fong Yuan thought. He Lu Lan was only a newly advanced Strength Path Gu Immortal, but Fong Yuan had great gains after unraveling her dream. If he could unravel Star Constellation Immortal Venerable's Dream Realm, Fang Yuan's wisdom path attainment would shoot up like a rocket. However, to snatch the immortal venerables dream realm from combat immortal sect is too dangerous, it is nearly impossible. Fang Yuan shook his head. To unravel a dream, he had to be in starry sky grotto heaven, and get close to that star constellation dream realm. If he did that, he would certainly be discovered. Based on his current battle strength, even if it increased, he would not be Shirley's match. Tai Bai Yun Sheng and He Lu Lan, compared to the rest of combat immortal sect, were an even greater mismatch. Unless I have Tang Clan of Western Desert's immortal killer move, Steal Dream, I would be able to steal the dream realm directly from the grotto heaven, moving it elsewhere and slowly dealing with it, devouring it at my own pace. In the 500 years of Fang Yuan's previous life, Western Desert's Tang Clan was the super force with the deepest foundation in Dream Path among the 5 regions. Originally, Tang Clan was not outstanding among the dozen or so super forces in Western Desert, it was at a middle to lower tier. But based on the rise of Dream Path, during the 5 regions' chaotic war, Tang Clan became Western Desert's strongest force. Even among the 5 regions, it was a power that could stand tall, creating what Western Desert people called the Great Era of Tang. Central Continent's current situation, even though there was slight turbulence, was still peaceful. Even though Fang Yuan really desired star constellation immortal venerables dream realm, his battle strength was still much lower than combat immortal sect, he could only watch covetously for now. Fortunately, at the moment, Dream Path was still in its initial stages of exploration. Even if combat immortal sect captured starry sky grotto heaven, they would not be able to do anything to star constellation immortal venerables dream realm. To make a comparison, this was like a juicy piece of meat, but it was submerged in boiling hot oil. Even though combat immortal sect knew that it was delicious, they could only watch for now, they could not eat it yet. Compared to Central Continent, Fang Yuan was more concerned about Northern Plains' situation. He had committed a huge crime, it was still being investigated. The other party had great strength and plenty of methods. Soon after the auction ended, they discovered Fang Yuan's identity of Sha Huang. They were not simple, it was giving Fang Yuan huge mental pressure. But when hearing Little Hu Immortal's report, he learned that Northern Plains' situation was much more calm than Central Continent. Almost all of the Gu immortals who attended the auction were trying to assimilate their gains from it, converting them into their own strength. Old Ancestor Shui, who mobilized the #1 demonic force in Northern Plains, the full power of snowy mountain-blessed land, to join in the plan to refine rank 8 fortune rivaling Heaven Immortal Gu, it was well known in Northern Plains Gu immortal world already. As the #1 righteous refinement path Gu immortal in Northern Plains, Yao Huang had deepened his collaboration with Zombie Alliance. This collaboration caused Zombie Alliance's status in Northern Plains to rise up rapidly. Qin Baixing vanished without a trace, and Prince Feng Xian, who Fang Yuan was most concerned about, also made no movements. This calm situation did not lower Fang Yuan's unease, he was getting increasingly worried. The other party would certainly not let him go. Once his identity was exposed, be it Central Continent or Northern Plains Gu immortal world, they would want to kill Fang Yuan, He Lu Lan and the others. Since it involved the huge benefits of Giant Sun Immortal Venerable's inheritance, even if Fang Yuan escaped to Eastern Sea or Western Desert, they would definitely pursue him, he would have no peace. The other party is in the dark, I wonder if it is Central Continent or Northern Plains investigating me. Fang Yuan sighed mentally. In this period of time, he had no solutions, he could only deal with the situation by continuing with his former plans. The only consolation was that he had made the right move by allying with Fairy Li Shan. With Fairy Li Shan's information network, Fang Yuan could learn about any changes in Northern Plains' situation rapidly. With an advantage in information, he could deal with anything that happens. Ultimately, the issue is that I am too weak. If I was a rank 8 Gu immortal, I would be able to protect myself. Even if Giant Sun's true inheritance was exposed to the world, so what? Oh, that is not right. Fong Yuan thought about the rank 9 Wisdom Gu and frowned. If news that he had Wisdom Gu leaked out, even if he was a rank 8, he might have rank 8 Gu immortals attacking him from all sides. No matter what, the urgent matter now is to absorb my gains from the auction, rapidly raising my strength. That is how I can deal with future situations. A few days later, Fong Yuan left the secret room in an unkempt state, but he had a joyous expression. He expanded his wings and flew into the sky. The large bat wings on his back had reached 3 pairs. It gave him a strong flying ability. His speed rose rapidly. During the auction, he obtained a bat desolate beast's corpse. Fong Yuan's killer move, true solid bat wings, had finally been completed. Iron Crown Eagle Strength. While flying, he suddenly unleashed the Iron Crown Eagle Strength. Suddenly, Fong Yuan's speed rose drastically. Earlier, he was like a stream of black smoke, but now he was like a flash of lightning. At once, Fong Yuan's vision became blurry. The intense winds blew at him, like they were sharp daggers. The Iron Crown Eagle Strength lasted for a short time before his speed fell back to the original level. Fong Yuan's vision cleared. Looking back, he had moved 3 li from his original spot. Flying 3 li in a flash. Fong Yuan was pleased, but yet not pleased. He was pleased because this speed was really fast. It was on par with some movement immortal killer moves. He was not pleased because the Iron Crown Eagle Strength was not controlled at will. He did not know when he could summon it. Unless my second core Gu, all-out effort Gu, is refined all the way up to immortal Gu level, at that point, I will be able to unleash the Iron Crown Eagle Strength at will. Fong Yuan thought about this and sighed. His all-out effort Gu was still at rank 4. Fong Yuan had solid finances now, but he did not have the corresponding Gu recipe. Not long ago, he had asked Xianxia Land Spirit. The answer was partly good and partly worrisome. Xianxia Land Spirit indeed had all-out effort Gu's recipes. From rank 1 to 5, he had them all. But Xianxia Land Spirit refused to sell Gu recipes. Even if Fong Yuan tried his best to convince him, there was no result. Fong Yuan intended to use a Dream Path Mortal Gu recipe to trade for it. But Xianxia Land Spirit had become more astute. He did not want to trade it for any Gu recipe. He gave Fong Yuan a mission. This mission required Fong Yuan to go into immemorial Purple Heaven, to search for a rank 6 immortal material, poisonous flowers, and collect their petals. Fong Yuan was so busy currently, he had no time for that. With strong foes pressuring him, if he exposed his identity accidentally, he would become a fugitive. The entire world would hunt him down. Fong Yuan did not dare to relax. He was trying his best to raise his battle strength. How could he go search for poisonous flowers? Furthermore, immemorial Purple Heaven was already destroyed. Even the fragment worlds was hard to find. Even if he found one, it was extremely dangerous. Desolate beasts and desolate plants were very common. Fong Yuan's current battle strength was insufficient. If he forced himself into conducting an exploration, it would simply be a difficult and unrewarding task. Chapter 777, Deadlock. This matter gave Fong Yuan a reminder. Even in regards to land spirits, they were not to be underestimated. They could grow with time, gaining wisdom or experience. Ever since Xianxia Land Spirit met Fong Yuan, he had suffered minor disadvantages many times, especially in this auction. The 4 to 6 profit ratio was a huge loss to Xianxia Land Spirit. As the saying goes, suffering a loss is a blessing. This was shown in Xianxia Land Spirit. He had become more intelligent. Xianxia Land Spirit thought about it hard, analyzing his relationship with Fong Yuan. He finally recognized their individual strengths and weaknesses. By using Fong Yuan's weakness in Gu recipes, he could regain the upper hand when working together with Fong Yuan. He was, after all, the obsession of long-hair ancestor after he died. This time, Fong Yuan's neck was grasped by Xianxia Land Spirit. It was a terrible feeling. But Fong Yuan could do nothing to Xianxia Blessed Land. Small advantages came at a price. Fang Yuan obtained such a profit from selling the Gu immortal captives in the auction. The backlash was showing up now, his mouth was filled with a bitter taste. Landing on the peak of Dang Hun Mountain, Fang Yuan retracted his 3 pairs of bat wings as he stood on the spot, looking into the distance as he thought. All-out effort Gu is just a small setback. It is not an immortal Gu recipe anyway. Even if I cannot get it, with my strength path attainment and wisdom Gu's help, I will be able to deduce the mortal Gu recipe. The problem is that it would use a lot of time and energy. At this crucial time, I cannot deduce Gu recipes if I want to raise my battle strength. Actually, even if Fang Yuan had a complete all-out effort immortal Gu recipe, he had no time to refine it. The real problem was regarding He Lu Lan. The compensation that Fang Yuan asked for after saving her was self-strength immortal Gu. After He Lu Lan heard about it from Fairy Li Shan, she was so angry she jumped up from her bed. Self-strength immortal Gu was her vital immortal Gu. It was the most important core in her self-strength phantom killer move. Fang Yuan asking for this Gu was simply crippling her foundation. Without self-strength immortal Gu, He Lu Lan's battle strength would fall drastically. Not only this, self-strength immortal Gu was the memento that her mother, Su Xianxia, left behind for her. To He Lu Lan, it was also a sentimental item that she could not give up. But she, Fang Yuan and Fairy Li Shan had the Snowy Mountain Alliance. In order to save He Lu Lan earlier, Fairy Li Shan had represented her and signed an agreement with Fang Yuan. She could not go back on it. Unless He Lu Lan had a heart of stone and ignored Fairy Li Shan's life, forcefully keeping self-strength immortal Gu. In that situation, there was nothing Fang Yuan could do. After all, the agreement was not signed by He Lu Lan herself. But how could He Lu Lan force herself to endanger Fairy Li Shan? Fairy Li Shan was the blood-related sister of her mother, Su Xianxia. When He Lu Lan was still immortal, Fairy Li Shan took great care of her. After she became an immortal, Fairy Li Shan nurtured He Lu Lan without regard for the cost, treating her like her own child. He Lu Lan was determined to exact revenge, but at the same time, she felt great gratitude, love, and admiration for this aunt. Fang Yuan was using this key point when he formed the agreement with Fairy Li Shan. He was not afraid that she would go back on this. Regarding her vital immortal Gu, He Lu Lan did not give up easily. Ever since she learned about it, she had tried negotiating with Fang Yuan over 10 times. She threatened and screamed, begged and gave softly spoken requests, talked about the benefits and drawbacks, and tried coercing him with the bigger picture. All sorts of methods were used to try and keep her self-strength immortal Gu. But would Fang Yuan give in? Self-strength immortal Gu was He Lu Lan's most important core, but to Fang Yuan, it was a similar situation. Fang Yuan's trump card was the immortal killer move, Myriad Self. Self-strength immortal Gu was extremely compatible with it. It was not like pulling mountain or pulling water, in which they needed him to deduce and modify the killer move. He Lu Lan refined self-strength immortal Gu during her ascension. When Fang Yuan heard of this, he felt immense regret and pity. Immortal Gu were unique. Since He Lu Lan had this Gu, as her ally, there was no way Fang Yuan could obtain it. But the tides of fortune were unpredictable. Heaven worked in mysterious ways. He Lu Lan wanted to take revenge and did her best to raise her cultivation level. In the end, she fell into a dream realm and gave Fang Yuan a chance. Fang Yuan was devious and heartless. He was like a shark that smelled blood. He bit down hard. Even if they were allies, so what? His own strength was the most important matter. Others were unreliable. Only one's own self was to be considered the most reliable. Fang Yuan had a firm attitude. He Lu Lan made many attempts but failed in all of them. In her anger, she purposely stalled the handing over of self-strength immortal Gu and refused to use strength chi immortal Gu to create the air sac Gu for Fang Yuan. He Lu Lan's action was very ruthless. This act gave Fang Yuan huge pressure. If He Lu Lan did not use strength chi immortal Gu, Fang Yuan would have no air sac Gu. Without air sac Gu, he could not sell Guts Gu. Earlier, in order to heal himself, Fang Yuan stopped the Guts Gu trade, using it for himself. Without this revenue, and with the 2 stone nests refining Gu continuously, his funds had dried up, he had less than 100 immortal essence stones left. To break through He Lu Lan's restrictions, Fang Yuan could use Wisdom Gu to deduce a new air sac Gu recipe. But this had problems too. Fang Yuan had already sold Delight in Water and Mountain Immortal Gu in the auction, he was using Malicious Thought Gu as a substitute, the quantity was still low. Even if he had an entire stone nest of hairy men, refining Malicious Thought Gu unendingly, under the light of wisdom, the expenditure of thoughts was too high. Follow EW Stories at N. Fang Yuan had some early expectations of this kind of situation. His original solution was to raise the scale of production. But to raise the production and build the 3rd or even 4th stone nest, he would need funds. Hairy men, especially those slaves skilled in refining Gu, were priced even higher. Fang Yuan had insufficient funds, he could not raise his production. The problem went back all the way to the first issue, it seemed to be a deadlock. Fang Yuan went to find Xianxia Lan's spirit and tried to use immortal materials to lure him into refining Malicious Thought Gu using the hairy men in his blessed land. But Xianxia Lan's spirit rejected him. His request remained the same, for Fang Yuan to go into immemorial purple heaven, to search for the rank 6 immortal material, poisonous flowers, and collect their petals. It seemed that this immortal material was very important to Xianxia Lan's spirit. Thus, Fang Yuan could not resolve the situation through this. With Airsac Gu restricted, there was no Guts Gu trade. The sale of Guts Gu was Fang Yuan's top source of revenue. Without funds, there was no Malicious Thought Gu, so Fang Yuan could not use the light of wisdom. This greatly affected Fang Yuan in the assimilation of his loot, slowing the plan to raise his battle strength. Fang Yuan was fully aware that He Lu Lan was attempting to compel him, forcing him into giving up self-strength Immortal Gu and choosing strength Qi Immortal Gu. He Lu Lan. I'd like to see who can outlast the other. Fang Yuan snickered, focusing his mind. He summoned Hu Immortal Land's spirit and went to Dang Hun Palace again. Sitting on the bed, he shut his eyes and went into the dream realm. Earlier, to save He Lu Lan, Fang Yuan used the Immortal Killer move Unravel Dream, it expended a lot of Dream Path Mortal Gu. In order to activate Unravel Dream Killer move again, he had to go into a dream to refine Dream Path Mortal Gu. At the same time, at a secret hideout in Northern Plains. The Wisdom Path Gu Immortal, Old Oracle from Ancient Soul Sect, one of the 10 great ancient sects of Central Continent, walked out of the secret room slowly. He looked exhausted, trying to deduce the culprit behind the collapse of Tru Yang building had left him in deep fatigue. His sideburns had turned white, his young face had become much older and wrinkled. How was it? Hong Chi Ming and the other immortals saw that he was outside and quickly approached him with concerned expressions. Old Oracle knew that they were not concerned about him, but the results of his deduction. There were many crucial pieces of evidence deduced this time, especially when Zhao Yan soul was searched and they witnessed the scenes that happened in Imperial Court Blessed Land, it was of great help for his deduction. But Old Oracle shook his head, having a gloomy expression, my attainment were insufficient, I have disappointed all of you. How could this be? You could not deduce anything even at this stage, the culprit is not simple, they are hiding too deeply. It seems we still need to collect information. The immortals were all elites of their sex. After slight disappointment, they quickly accepted the results and started to discuss their future plans. After some discussion, Feng Jiugu spoke. Right now, we have no clear target, we should split up and do our own missions. It was not easy to come to northern plains from central continent. I am sure you all have private matters aside from investigating the truth. For the time being, while you settle your private affairs, try to collect more information. Feng Jiuji's reputation was the highest, nobody dared to question him. Right now, with no clear target, everyone had to settle their own matters. They quickly split up and left, in order to resolve the missions from their respective sects. Old Oracle and Feng Jiugu stayed behind. Lord Jiugu. Old Oracle was hesitant. In truth, he had made a huge breakthrough this time in his deduction, but after telling Feng Jiugu, the latter ordered that the information was to be concealed. That was why Old Oracle lied to everyone earlier, telling them that his deduction failed. Feng Jiugu looked at him and smiled with deep meaning. The culprit who caused the collapse of 88 Truyang building was already most likely to be from the 10 great sects of Central Continent. Now that you obtained the deduction that the culprit is a member of the 10 sects of Central Continent, I allowed the rest to act freely. In the case that a mistake is made in concealing it, we would be able to find the culprit. But the result of my deduction could be wrong from the start. Old Oracle lowered his head. Don't worry, if it is really a traitor in the 10 sects, after causing such a huge incident, no matter how they try to conceal it, there are bound to be clues left behind. Feng Jiugu consoled him, while also seemingly giving a warning. Old Oracle raised his head, his gaze was clear as he stared at Feng Jiugu. Lord Jiugu is hiding this from the other Gu immortals, do you not suspect my sect? Feng Jiugu laughed heartily, he frankly admitted, honestly speaking, I naturally was suspicious since long ago. You can go now, I am sure Ancient Soul Sect gave you secret missions as well. Feng Jiuji's tone was that of one who had confidence in grasping the entire situation. Old Oracle's heart shook, he lowered his head, that is indeed the case, I will leave now. Saying this, his body was like lightning as he vanished into the sky. Only Feng Jiugu was left in his original spot, his gaze was dark and eerie, and his expression was calm, it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. Chapter 778, Immortal Gu changes owner. Time Luck Immortal Gu was silently floating above Feng Yuan's head, it was moving from side to side. Time Luck Immortal Gu was like a jade centipede, it was pale green and was swimming about in the area above Feng Yuan's head, coiling around and giving off a watery sheen. Feng Yuan was injecting green grape immortal essence into it, while inspecting the inch of time Gu worms in his immortal aperture. Earlier, he had made an agreement with Xianxia land spirit, asking him to refine inch of time in bulk using the hairy men. The time flow in Xianxia blessed land was faster than Hu immortal blessed land, the quality of the hairy men was much higher, it could be considered of the highest grade. Thus, after Feng Yuan paid with immortal materials, a large number of inch of time Gu, like a small golden mountain, accumulated in Feng Yuan's immortal aperture. As the saying went, time was money, an inch of time was an inch of gold. Although inch of time Gu was immortal Gu, it had an appearance like that of a gold bar. The higher the rank of inch of time Gu, the longer and thicker the gold bar. But at this moment, when Feng Yuan activated Time Luck Immortal Gu, inch of time Gu was used up rapidly. The gold mountain had vanished completely in just a few breaths of time. Without inch of time support, the Time Luck Immortal Gu above his head stopped activating. Feng Yuan sighed in regret, it seems that it is quite tough to use inch of time to activate Time Luck Immortal Gu in the place of lifespan. I only activated it for such a short period of time, I gained almost no additional luck. Like what Fairy Li Shan said earlier, activating Time Luck Immortal Gu involved expending immortal essence and the Gu immortal's lifespan to gain a boost in luck. But Feng Yuan had barely any lifespan left, how could he waste it so easily? During the final moments of Imperial Court Blessed Lands battle, when he was forced to become an immortal zombie, he was already extremely old. He had not used any lifespan Gu before, thus he only had 100 years of lifespan. Right now, he had only around 10 years or less remaining. Phi. DD. EW UPT. T. S on N, O, V/E/L. In.com. If one day, he could get rid of his immortal zombie body and become a living person again, his lifespan would not change. That is to say, even if I recover, my body would be extremely old. That is a problem. Before that, I need to find lifespan Gu and use it on myself. Fang Yuan thought about this and couldn't help but frown. Lifespan Gu were hard to find, they were extremely precious. Ordinary Gu immortals would not sell them when they were obtained. In the Northern Plains auction earlier, not a single lifespan Gu was sold. Lifespan Gu were only mortal Gu, the conditions for their production were greatly variable. For Gu immortals to find lifespan Gu almost meant relying on luck. In many situations, lifespan Gu were often obtained by mortal Gu masters. Gu immortals could not control where they appeared. Fang Yuan being able to find lifespan Gu and extend his lifespan by several hundred years in his previous life was due to this. Up to this point, the best way to search for lifespan Gu would have been through using 88 True Yang building. Unfortunately, I only obtained one lifespan Gu in this immortal Gu house, and Tai Bai Yunxing already used it. It is basically impossible to rebuild 88 True Yang building now. Fang Yuan's thoughts moved, Time Luck Immortal Gu turned into a flash of light, entering his immortal aperture. Even though his immortal aperture had turned into a dead land, once in a while, a small amount would break off, but for Gu worms, there was still a lot of space. Time Luck Immortal Gu eventually floated onto another gold mountain. This second gold mountain was naturally made up of Inch of Time Gu. Fang Yuan had obtained a huge amount of Inch of Time Gu from Langya Land Spirit. They had piled into two mountains. One had already been expended earlier. The last remaining one was here. Even though the test result previously was not satisfactory, it gave Fang Yuan a lot of precious and useful inspiration. Earlier, I was only using Inch of Time and Time Luck Immortal Gu alone. If I add in other Gu worms, or even turn it into an immortal killer move, the expenditure of Inch of Time Gu might be greatly reduced, allowing it to become more feasible and desirable. Unfortunately, even though the light of wisdom gives me unlimited inspiration, this deduction involves time path. I have no attainment in it. With such a restriction, Fang Yuan could only keep his thoughts in mind for now rather than making an attempt. He still lacked Dream Path Mortal Gu. Fang Yuan was not going to waste any more time. After regulating his breathing for a few moments, he remained seated on his bed and closed his eyes, entering his dream realm. After going through 3 dream realms, he refined 2 Dream Path Mortal Gu, storing them in his mind. Such a success rate was much higher compared to when he initially started. But during the 3rd refinement, Fang Yuan failed and his soul was injured. Dream realms themselves were risky, not to mention refining Gu in a dream. If I lose my focus, I will fall into the dream's trap. Thankfully, Guts Gu can strengthen my soul. Fang Yuan felt relieved. He opened his eyes and walked out of Dang Hun Palace. On Dang Hun Mountain, there were Guts Gu everywhere. Fang Yuan used a few and healed the injuries to his soul. Just as he was about to return and continue refining Dream Path Mortal Gu, his expression changed, as a letter was sent into his immortal aperture using Moving Perspective Cup Gu. Fang Yuan looked at it and his face flashed with joy. He immediately stopped the plan of refining Gu. He chose a scenic location on Dang Hun Mountain and sat down, taking out an elephant's leg and using fire Gu to roast it. A moment later, a figure flew over from the southeast direction. It was a female immortal, with black hair and black pupils. She had a divine beauty in a dominating aura. It was He Lulan. He Lulan flew in the air, landing before Fang Yuan with a cold expression. She looked at the elephant leg on Fang Yuan's hand, recognizing that it was the flesh and bones of a desolate beast, drought elephant. She said sarcastically, "So the immortal materials in your hands can be wasted to this degree already?" Fang Yuan laughed heartily. He looked at He Lulan before his gaze landed back onto the elephant leg. After a short while, because of the high heat, the elephant leg was half cooked already. It was oozing with fragrance. "It has been a while, Fairy Lulan, please take a seat," Fang Yuan said politely. He Lulan snorted, remaining standing, unmoving as she emitted a faint anger. Fang Yuan found it funny. Although she was a formidable character, she was still a young woman. But if he was in her place, if someone wanted his spring-autumn cicada, would he give it up? Perhaps he might have already fallen out with the person and fought already. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan mentally alerted himself. He Lulan's mistake was right in front of him, he could not ignore it. He Lulan desperately wanted to take revenge. She took risks in undergoing tribulations. In the end, she was careless and almost died. Right now, she could not stall any longer. She had to hand self-strength immortal Gu over. By this stage, one could not advance prematurely and underestimate risks. A Gu immortal's calamities and tribulations, are they so easy to pass? Even if one was overflowing with talent, and had an arrogant nature, they had to admit the facts. He Lulan was a youngster who was not afraid of death. By charging forward blindly, she had suffered a loss. Now she would start becoming careful. But it was thanks to her that I could obtain self-strength immortal Gu, right? Fang Yuan thought about this and laughed in his heart, putting the elephant leg in front of his mouth as he bit off a huge chunk, eating it with pleasure. He Lulan saw this and snickered. "You are already an immortal zombie, you have no sense of taste. Now that there is no hope of restoring your body again, you are doing this to reminisce your past." Fang Yuan said slowly and calmly, "Fairy Lulan, you did not come here to see me eat meat, right?" He Lulan's expression was still as water. There was anger in her tone as she said with deep meaning, "You are so gluttonous, are you not afraid of bursting your stomach?" "Don't worry, my appetite is good, dying of overeating is better than dying of starvation." Humph. He Lulan was gritting her teeth in rage. She suppressed her anger as she said with a calmer tone, "Actually, what's wrong with changing what you eat? That way, we can all have meat to eat. Fate is unpredictable, who would not have downturns in life?" Fang Yuan understood her words. He Lulan wanted to use Strength Qi Immortal Gu to replace self-strength as the compensation to Fang Yuan. But Fang Yuan would not agree. He swallowed the food in his mouth as he sighed deeply, exclaiming, "Precisely because fate is unpredictable, I try all sorts of ways to become stronger, so that I can deal with any desperate situation in the future. He Lulan, you understand me, once I make up my mind, I won't change it." He Lulan's eyes squinted. Fang Yuan was such a person, she was of a similar kind. Just as she was about to speak, her pupils shrunk. Only seeing that on Fang Yuan's body, a bright light had appeared in a flash. This light was horizontal across his chest. It was a faint shadow at first, but it soon became brighter and more solid, carving itself onto Fang Yuan's body. A strength path Dao mark. He Lulan's expression changed. Just earlier, she witnessed with her own eyes that Fang Yuan gained a strength path Dao mark. She quickly calmed down, thinking of the answer. Her eyes twitched as she said dryly, "So the Eat Strength Immortal Gu that appeared in Northern Plains auction is in your hands. How do all the good things end up in your hands?" Eat Strength Immortal Gu had low value to other Gu immortals, they even would not dare to use it much. But to Strength Path Gu immortals, it was undeniably a treasure. Especially in He Lu Lan's case, her cultivation had met with an obstacle, she could not raise it by undergoing tribulation. At this time, Eat Strength Immortal Gu, which carried 0 risks, became very important. Fang Yuan did not speak, he bit down at the bones. He had already eaten the meat on the elephant leg, but the bones also contained natural strength path Dao marks. Even though the elephant leg bones were tough, his sharp teeth chewed them up and he swallowed. Soon afterwards, Fang Yuan gained a new strength path Dao mark. He was not afraid of He Lu Lan going back on her words. Because the agreement for saving her had already reached the time limit. He Lu Lan came at the last moment to give it one last try. But in this matter, from start to finish, Fang Yuan had no way to lose. Once they went back on the contract, Fairy Li Shan would die. How could He Lu Lan watch that happen? Come, sit, I'll treat you to some meat. Fang Yuan took out another strength path desolate beast's leg from his immortal aperture. After cooking it, he gave the leg to He Lu Lan. At the same time, he willed and Eat Strength Immortal Gu flew into He Lu Lan's hands. He Lu Lan received it without hesitation. After swallowing the flesh and bone, she activated Eat Strength Immortal Gu to digest them. A moment later, a strength path Dao mark appeared in her body. Even though the gains were barely 0.1% compared to a tribulation, this method had no risks, it could be accumulated continually. After eating half of it, He Lu Lan sighed deeply and gave self-strength Immortal Gu to Fang Yuan. The two traded on the spot. Self-strength Immortal Gu changed owners. Chapter 779, Chains of Benefits. Fang Yuan put away self-strength Immortal Gu, his expression did not change, he turned to He Lu Lan and said, "From now on, Fairy Lu Lan, if you want to borrow Eat Strength Immortal Gu for cultivation, you just need to pass me a certain sum of immortal materials as payment." He Lu Lan nodded. This was his response. He Lu Lan was a formidable person. The moment she saw Fang Yuan display his Eat Strength Immortal Gu purposely, she knew his intentions. He did not want to sever their relationship, he chose to deepen their cooperation. Fang Yuan forcefully asked for self-strength Immortal Gu, it bit open a huge, bloody wound on their alliance, blood was oozing and the bones could be seen. However, in contrast to the precious self-strength Immortal Gu in sole possession, Fang Yuan was lending Eat Strength Immortal Gu, this was giving He Lu Lan a way out. He Lu Lan ate the leg that she had, letting out a heavy sigh as she looked at Fang Yuan without a trace of anger on her face. "Let's go to a stone nest." He Lu Lan set out, taking the initiative to help Fang Yuan refine the air sac Gu. Fang Yuan laughed heartily, it seemed like He Lu Lan was having a hard time. Just now, she underwent tribulation and went into great danger. After being saved by Fang Yuan, her blessed land was sure to have suffered heavy damage. Fairy Li Shan had always been helping He Lu Lan with her cultivation, regardless of costs. But now, she was in trouble too. She had to help old ancestor Shui who refined fortune rivaling Heaven Gu. All of the demonic path Gu immortals of Snowy Mountain were kept extremely busy in collecting immortal materials. This was an important and burdensome task, Fairy Li Shan had no choice but to spend all her efforts on it. Fang Yuan wanted to continue selling Guts Gu, didn't He Lu Lan have the same desire? Fang Yuan's earlier action of splitting profits with He Lu Lan and Fairy Li Shan was an extremely wise decision. At this point, it had taken effect. Profits were a form of restraint, even if He Lu Lan was furious internally, because of the big picture and her own circumstances, she had to cooperate with Fang Yuan. On this day, He Lu Lan summoned large amounts of strength qi, allowing the refinement of air sac Gu to restart. Before leaving, she gave Fang Yuan another idea for cooperation. Right now, Fang Yuan did not have the funds to increase his production, but He Lu Lan was willing to invest in this, building a third stone nest and obtaining ample hairy men. Her condition was that Fang Yuan must give her a higher profit ratio. Fang Yuan agreed immediately. The transaction of Guts Gu had restarted. It was like a fresh current of water flowing into a drying river. The management of the blessed land was almost stale, now it was operating again. Like a horse carriage, the huge wheels were rolling and moving it forward. Several days later, the third stone nest was built in Fang Yuan's immortal blessed land. Right now, Fang Yuan had several Gu worms to mass refine: air sac Gu, malicious thought Gu, memory thought Gu, and inch of time. 3 stone nests were insufficient to meet his needs. This invited a key question: how could he most effectively make use of his limited resources? Eventually, Fang Yuan ordered the first and third stone nest to refine air sac Gu. The second stone nest would refine malicious thought Gu. He had a large number of deductions to do, thus, he had to refine either memory thought Gu or malicious thought Gu. Malicious thought Gu was good for plotting against others, while memory thought Gu was useful for extracting information from his memories. But in terms of deduction, the two had no clear difference. As for why he was mainly refining air sac Gu, that was because Fang Yuan realized that he could sell a lot of Guts Gu without any issues. Times had changed. The market for Guts Gu had been steadily growing. Especially when Fang Yuan had stopped the trade of Guts Gu not long ago, he had used it solely for healing himself. This act had cut off the supply to the market, causing a shortage to occur, thus the price of Guts Gu had been skyrocketing. This phenomenon made Fang Yuan realize that the market for Guts Gu had truly expanded. He could totally raise the prices. He thought about this, thus he did it. The Guts Gu trade earlier was done monthly. His profit was 48 immortal essence stones. After raising the price, and excluding the profits given to He Lu Lan and Fairy Li Shan, Fang Yuan earned a total of 92 immortal essence stones. This was almost double his previous earnings. A monopoly is truly useful for earning profits. Fang Yuan's circumstances became much easier because of this, he sighed to himself, also being deeply alerted. Because the greater the profits of the Guts Gu trade, the greater the prospects, the more Immortal Crane's sect and the other forces would inevitably become restless. Maybe because Fang Yuan displayed a huge amount of strength earlier, and because Immortal Crane's sect was restricted in other aspects, they could not find the time or effort to deal with Fang Yuan. Right now, the profits of Guts Gu transactions were going up. One day, Immortal Crane's sect would make up their mind and put in more strength to try and regain immortal blessed land. A man's wealth is his own ruin by stirring another's greed. Be it the righteous path or demonic path, they pursued profit. The difference was, the righteous path had nicer looking methods on the surface. As for the cultivation of Gu masters, or rather, the core of it, it was about a person's survival. It was always to defend one's own interests while devouring others' interests. Fang Yuan knew this clearly. He did not deny that there was no difference between him, any other person, or any force. In the face of profits, they were all wolves. To deter Immortal Crane's sect, there is only one method. That is to increase my strength unceasingly, to cause their actions to fail, to make them feel threat. With such urgency and drive, Fang Yuan successfully integrated Self-Strength Immortal Gu into the Immortal Killer move, Myriad Self, a few days later. Although Self-Strength Immortal Gu was very compatible with Myriad Self, Fang Yuan still spent several days to adjust the complementary Mortal Gu. After testing it, he received an almost perfect result. I cannot use Cleanse Soul, but I added in Self-Strength. With this, my battle strength is back to first rate within rank 6. In fact, the killer move Myriad Self is even stronger than before. Maybe it is time to explore that thieving heaven demon venerable inheritance. Fang Yuan was thinking carefully. He had assimilated much of the gains from the auction. Myriad Self returned to having an immortal killer move strength. True solid bat wings paired with iron crown eagle strength Immortal Gu was on par with a movement immortal killer move. To deduce vaguely familiar face and the others, he needed a huge amount of malicious thought goo. In Hu immortal blessed land, there was only one stone nest fully refining it, it would still take a long time before the quantity was accumulated to a sufficient degree. As for how to solve the immortal zombie problem, even though Tai by Yun Sheng was making some progress in Eastern Sea, Shark Demon's method was too costly and took too long. In terms of Northern Plains Zombie Alliance, because Feng Jiugu forcefully asked them for information, his Sha Huang identity could not be used anymore, that plan was halted. Speaking of it, I have already obtained this thieving heaven inheritance for quite some time. If I can get Luo Pa Valley, together with Dang Hun Mountain, my soul foundation would rapidly grow. That is a good method to raise my battle strength as well. In the future, I can even undergo the transaction of Bewilderment Fog and Luo Pa Wind, increasing my revenue. At the same time, in Luo Pa Valley, a negotiation had reached its most crucial moment. Qin Baisheng had a light smile as he looked at Hui Fengzi. Hui Fengzi was dressed in a green robe. He lowered his head and thought about it, suddenly laughing as he looked up. Qin Baisheng, to think that I treated you as my best friend, you actually lured me into this trap to harm me. With your strength, you cannot take down Langyip blessed land, you want me to be cannon fodder? Qin Baisheng's gaze shined, he said lightly, with your wind escape move, you can retreat as you wish, you are famous in Northern Plains, how could you end up as cannon fodder? Even if wind escape is an immortal killer move, the best in movement within Northern Plains, it cannot penetrate blessed lands or grotto heavens. Qin Baisheng, I cannot accept your invitation. Hui Fengzi rejected as he shook his head. He was a rank 7 Wind Path Gu immortal, he was a famous and established character. Even if he had a superb skill, he was still very vigilant. Perhaps that was the reason he could live up to this point and have such an achievement. Qin Baisheng nodded. Hui Fengzi's reply was not unexpected. In that case, I will be forced to make you come. You want to stop me? Hui Fengzi's expression tensed, his eyes shined with a sharp light. Very well, let us spar, it will dispel some unrealistic thoughts in your mind. I, Hui Fengzi, am not someone who can be ordered around easily. As he said that, he struck. Boom! Hui Fengzi opened his mouth, he flicked with his tongue as a huge wind blade shot towards Qin Baisheng. Immortal killer move, Death Wind Flying Blade. Good timing. Qin Baisheng did not move, he only laughed. The wind blade hit Qin Baisheng, who did not move at all. At once, golden light burst out. As the golden light faded, Qin Baisheng remained unharmed. What defensive killer move is this? Hui Fengzi was shocked, he asked in astonishment, my death wind flying blade did not even cut a single strand of your hair. Qin Baisheng smiled without speaking. How can I fight him like this? Hui Fengzi's eyes twitched, his battle intent fell, he wanted to retreat. Immortal killer move, Wind Escape. He used his signature method, famous within Northern Plains. At once, Hui Fengzi turned into a gust of wind as he flew towards the sky of Luo Pa Valley. This movement killer move had helped Hui Fengzi escape danger countless times, it made his enemies sigh in helplessness. The most memorable occasion was when Hui Fengzi used this move to escape from the rank 8 Gu immortal, Yao Huang, who was pursuing him. But Qin Baisheng did not move as he looked at Hui Fengzi escape, he was expressionless. Rumble. On top of Luo Pa Valley, thunder was booming as clouds rumbled. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The intense wind blew, countless ghostly figures, at a quantity of millions, flew around below the clouds. Find up. Ted. Uvels on N. /v/elbin, .co/m. Hui Fengzi spit out a mouthful of blood, it was like he rammed into an iron wall, he was forced out of his wind state. What Gu formation is this? He was uncertain, his wind escape could not break out of this area. Qin Baixing smiled without answering Hui Fengzi's question. He asked, "Does Sir want to consider joining us and attacking Langya Blessed Land?" This time, Hui Fengzi only thought about it for a few breaths before landing. "Qin Baixing, you were superior after all. Never mind, I will join you in this." Qin Baixing laughed. He was not surprised. Hui Fengzi was famous for knowing his place. He was a wise man who submitted to circumstances. Since he could not escape, Hui Fengzi's greatest advantage was gone. Furthermore, Qin Baixing's alliance conditions were not too harsh. Even though he was slightly unhappy, he still joined in helplessly. Chapter 780, Fate Immortal Gu. Central Continent, Heavenly Court. The silver-white sky shined with a bright and pure luster. Countless exquisite halls made of white jade could be seen everywhere, empty and tranquil. Amongst the halls, there was an old white tower covered in blemishes, standing tall and conspicuous like a crane in a flock of chickens. The tower's name was Heaven Overseeing. It originated from star constellation Immortal Venerable. As the name suggested, one could observe the whole world from this tower. However, winds never stopped blowing. The events of the world were turbulent and changeable. Even though star constellation Immortal Venerable's talent and wisdom could rival that of the heavens, she still could not escape the fate of dying from the end of her lifespan. Later, Heavenly Court experienced the attacks of 3 demon venerables, and when Giant Sun Immortal Venerable and Spectral Soul Demon Venerable ruled the world, they also had the intention of taking possession of Heavenly Court, but for some reason, they dispelled that thought. Over 3 million years. Countless marks of history had deeply been imprinted onto Heaven Overseeing Tower. Splendid brilliance or deep gloominess, the vicissitudes of all kinds of experiences had merged into Heaven Overseeing Tower, turning it into an imposing structure, resembling an ancient tree that has lived since ancient times. Or like a bronze cauldron that had stood witness to the changes of the world, and still stood tall without collapsing. Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord walked up the stairs holding a walking cane. His back was bent. He was a rank 8 Gu immortal, but his majestic aura revealed an intense aura of old age. His hair had turned white, wrinkles covered his body like an old tree's bark. His eyes were blurry and his gaze cloudy. He slowly lifted his foot, or rather, dragged. He was like an old insect, tottering up the endless stairs with difficult steps. He walked forward step by step. Every step he walked, the white jade stairs under his feet would shine with a slight light and let out a beautiful sound, like that of a xylophone. The next change was to the walls beside the old man. Images changed constantly on the walls. Sometimes there was a lump of vague, foggy figures, sometimes there were innumerable colorful lines, and rarely, there would appear clear pictures. The old man paid close attention to the pictures on the walls. Whenever he went up a step, a bead of the immortal essence inside him would be consumed, and changes would occur to the pictures on the walls. The old man's movement paused. A picture on a wall vividly portrayed a valley. Luopa Valley. The old man softly muttered. A flash of brilliance appeared and disappeared in his blurry eyes. 2 Gu immortals were fighting at the center of the picture. A wind path Gu immortal and a metal path Gu immortal. At the periphery of the picture, several Gu immortals were standing, looking at the battle in the center. The picture continued to change. The battle of the 2 Gu immortals was not intense. They stopped after exchanging 1 or 2 moves. Finally, the picture froze at this scene. The wind path Gu immortal slowly lowered his head at the metal path Gu immortal. The old man inwardly engraved this scene in his mind. In the innumerable steps that led to the top of the tower, those that could show such clear pictures would only number a dozen or so. Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord continued to move up the tower. He saw a deep sea. in which a group of Gu immortals, consisting mostly of immortal zombies, were attacking a blessed land. A female immortal was kneeling on sandy ground, pleading for assistance from an elderly male Gu immortal. A young Gu master was unconscious in a bed. A spirit incubating flea was lying on his forehead, slightly shaking. He saw a Gu immortal with white clothing and blue pupils, quietly moving through a forest in southern border. He also saw an eerie dark swamp, huge rays of blood-colored light were enshrouding it, within which a blood path Gu immortal was cultivating. The more the old man saw, the more chilly his face became, and the more fury accumulated in his blurry eyes. These people, they have all escaped the judgment of fate. Finally, he walked to the top of the stairs and stepped onto the peak of the tower, where an immortal Gu appeared in front of him. Rank 9 Immortal Gu, Fate. It looked like a spider, colored in black and white. Its aura was weak, there was a scarlet wound on its body that almost cut it in two. The old man gazed at this Gu for a long while before he heaved a sigh. Heaven Overseeing Tower was a rank 9 Immortal Gu house. Unfortunately, its most important core, Fate, had suffered a fatal injury and was close to destruction. Red Lotus Demon Venerable. The old man gritted his teeth, his gaze revealing deep enmity. The person who inflicted such an injury onto Immortal Gu Fate was none other than a famed character in history, Red Lotus Demon Venerable. Red Lotus Demon Venerable broke Fate, destroying the chains of fate and allowing all living beings in the world to grasp their own destiny. But Immortal Gu Fate was not completely destroyed. However, despite the care and protection from all immortals in Heavenly Court, the injuries Fate had suffered had yet to recover even after 1,000,000 years. This situation was caused by the attack of Red Lotus Demon Venerable. The injuries on Fate Immortal Gu were not only represented in its physical wounds, it was also reflected on all the living beings who had escaped the judgment of fate. The existence of these people in themselves signified the breaking of fate. Thus, healing the Immortal Gu Fate had to be done in two aspects. One was to deal with the wound on the Gu. The other was to clear the obstacles for Immortal Gu Fate by eliminating all those who had escaped the judgment of fate. No matter which aspect, both were troublesome issues. Especially the second aspect, the 5 regions were extremely vast, every moment, there would be someone who escaped their fate. It was extremely difficult for Heavenly Court to eliminate these existences. Even if Heavenly Court was the most powerful Gu immortal organization, it only controlled Central Continent. The remaining 4 regions were linked to Central Continent through regional walls. The higher the cultivation of the expert, the more difficult it would be for them to pass the regional wall. The regional walls of each of the regions were like protective layers that isolated the 5 regions from each other and made them independent territories. In the beginning, when Fate Immortal Gu had just been injured, Heavenly Court was still seeing some efficiency in eliminating escapees of fate. But merely some years later, there were countless escapees like waves formed in a sea, appearing repeatedly, to the extent that they could not be fully attended to. More than 10 years later, this situation spread like a wildfire throughout the 5 regions. Dozens of years later, immortal zombies appeared, humans that were supposed to be dead but were still living. This was the classic example of escaping fate's judgment. Back then, this situation had shocked, angered and shaken the whole of Heavenly Court. As such a practice grew more popular to this day, a branch of immortal zombies appeared even in Central Continent. Survival was a basic human instinct, even Heavenly Court could not resist such a trend. The goal of restoring Fate Gu seemed to be getting more distant day by day, and there seemed to be no hope. However, Heavenly Court had never given up. Because every generation of Heavenly Court Gu immortals firmly remembered the dignity of Heavenly Court during the Olden Antiquity era, and its glory during the Remote Antiquity era. And the greatest cornerstone in building this was Fate Gu. Star Constellation Immortal Venerables arrangements used Fate Gu as the core. Therefore, allowing resistance against 3 demon venerables and ensuring Heavenly Court did not fall. Completely healing Fate Gu was akin to grasping the paths in life for all living beings. This also meant that Heavenly Court would once again be paramount, becoming the supreme immortals among immortals, rulers among countless rulers. All their efforts had provided some results. Under generations after generations of efforts from Gu immortals of Heavenly Court, and enormous prices paid over the course of history, Fate Gu was recovering bit by bit until the current state, where although it was dying, it could be barely used. It was because of this that pictures appeared on Heaven Overseeing Tower's walls. Fate escapees and Fate Gu were irreconcilably opposed. However, those that had escaped the judgment of fate were truly too many in numbers. The ones that appeared in Heaven Overseeing Tower were only the strongest ones, while also not being inside blessed lands or grotto heavens, in addition to not using wisdom path methods to conceal themselves, therefore they were easy to deduce. Soon. Using the latest refinement path convention to heal Fate Gu's injury will result in a qualitative breakthrough. All the investments we made will be worth it. Countless years of accumulation will be brought about to fruition from this. After the refinement path convention, Fate Gu should be able to display 50% of its might. Follow. Daoist stories at n. vl/by/n.com. Heaven Overseeing Tower Lord mumbled while caressing Fate Gu. His expression gradually eased up, the anger in his heart temporarily pacified. But before this, we still need to eliminate these main sinners who had escaped the judgment of fate. All lives have their trajectory and destiny predetermined since they are born. This is the law of heaven and earth, the rule of nature. How can we allow you to leisurely escape? This is life that does not belong to any of you. While thinking of this, the old man recalled the clear pictures which he had engraved in his mind when he moved up the stairs. Before fate recovers, I will act in the capacity of heaven and eliminate the tallest of these weeds. Central continent, who immortal blessed land. The light of wisdom filled the underground cave. Fong Yuan was inside the light with his eyes tightly closed. Behind him was the biggest Lingji in the cave. It was the king of the Ji forest and had already grown to the size of a fat, mature small tree with lush mushroom heads. Bright colored lights shined on Fong Yuan's face. His breathing was deep and slow, malicious thoughts rose up and down in his mind like waves, constantly crashing against each other. After a while, Fong Yuan opened his eyes. I took such a long time in accumulating malicious thought Gu, but they were used up like this. He frowned, unsatisfied with this result. He had first attempted to deduce how to add pulling mountain and pulling water into the killer move Miri itself. The result was that he used up half of the stock of malicious thought Gu, but only made less than 10% progress. This progress was too slow. Fong Yuan then tried to deduce immortal killer move vaguely familiar face. He used up all malicious thought Gu, but the progress was only a little over 10%. In the end, it was because my transformation path attainment is too low. Fong Yuan sighed. At this moment, he suddenly felt something. A moving perspective cup Gu came out of his immortal aperture. The Gu brought a letter. Fong Yuan opened it. There were only 4 words on it: the time has arrived. Fong Yuan's gaze flashed as he stood up. The sender was Fairy Li Shan. Fong Yuan had originally intended to follow Thieving Heaven Demon Venerable's inheritance clues to find Luo Pa Valley. But not long ago, Fairy Li Shan had suddenly sent news which caused Fong Yuan to dispel the plan of Luo Pa Valley. This news was regarding Dongfang Changfan's wisdom path inheritance. After Dongfang Changfan died, Dongfang Yuliang was his legacy successor. But the latter was only a mortal Gu master, thus to stop the intention of other Gu immortals, Dongfang Changfan did not directly hand over the wisdom path inheritance to Dongfang Yuliang, instead arranged it at a hidden place. Fairy Li Shan had vast connections and specialized in getting intel. This time, the intel was that Dong Fang Yu Liang had secretly headed off to an unknown location, attempting to inherit the wisdom path inheritance.